And welcome to the Barry Foster Show on YouTube, originating from the Ridge Floor Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for our program, you can either drop us a line at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com or just put it in the comments below down there. Well, you want people you want us to interview or topics you want us to talk about, we'll be glad to do that for you. Remember, we try to put up something each and every day on our YouTube channel here, and we put up regularly new programming, and also subscribe to our YouTube page. By the way, it does not cost anything to subscribe to this YouTube page. It's absolutely free of charge, no additional charge. You can also follow the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. That would be very helpful. In the studios with us, John Larsen. Oh, by the way, before we get started, I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank the House of David, who came and they gave me a great haircut. I appreciate them in beautiful downtown Sebring. And Sebring Signs, who just put the logo on the back of my car. So some of the local businesses doing this a great job. And if you're a fan of the Barry Foster Show on Facebook, we now have a Barry Foster Show group where you can get together and talk about things, have interaction, have spirited discussions, and we've opened that up as well. So, good morning, John. How you doing, my friend?
Good morning. How are we doing this morning?
So far, so good.
Off to a new week.
And I understand on the way in there was a wide range of gas prices. Is it that time of week again when they jump back up? And
well, you wouldn't think so on Monday. It's usually almost always on Tuesday. However, all right, I mean, I passed one this morning that was $3.19, and a couple more were $2.87, $2.88. So there's quite a range. I mean, that's quite a range. Okay.
Now on my way in, the Murphy gas station was $2.83, and we got it for it's really low in Sarasota. We got it for $2.79 at the Costco, but most of the gas prices were in the 280s, the low 280s. So it was a lot less expensive over there than it is over here, and that's not usual.
Well, I just, again, we've talked about this many times, but I think the thing, when it comes down to it, how people feel when it comes election time, and I know we're not there yet, I know it's going to be next year, however, pocketbook items are always the end decider for a lot of people.
It's the economy.
That's right. And when you take a look at the two biggest items on most everybody's plate, beside the ongoing cost of electricity and all that, are food and gas. Food to eat and gas to get where you want to go.
And gas to get the food to get
That's right.
to you.
So, I mean, that's a big item for a lot of people. And when you run across people, one of the things, especially if they've been traveling or you've been traveling, one of the first things you talk about is, what'd you pay for gas? Okay,
yeah.
What'd you pay for gas? And I mean, when I was traveling this summer, it was all over the map. A low of $2.41.
Wow.
And a high of like $3.39. So it's all over. But this weekend I was thinking about that. I said, okay, what are the prices, when you take a look at it? And it's no wonder Pennsylvania, as of this year, has the highest gas tax in the country, okay? They are at 58.7 cents a gallon.
Wow.
State tax. California is next at 51.1. I thought they were higher. But
One
no,
would think,
in fact,
because
they're
their
lower.
gas prices are usually a lot higher.
Well, however, in California, what's going on is two of the refineries have already said, out of the four that are in California, if you remember, way back, California was one of the original oil-producing states. I mean, they drilled wells all over the state of California.
Yeah. So is Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you go, the first well ever drilled, was in Pennsylvania.
That's right,
Pennsylvania. Yeah, and so on. So, but the thing of it is that people in Pennsylvania have been used to it because the politicians there never saw a tax they didn't like. And so the gas tax is an easy one because they kind of slip it in under the rug. And they have almost a mandatory gas tax increase in Pennsylvania every year. That's kind of mandatory. So their price keeps going up. However, in California, even though it may be 51.1 right now, two of the four refineries have announced they're leaving. And when that happens, they're going to have to start importing gas from other refinery states around California, which is going to jack the price up. And they're saying now that it very easily is going to go from $8 to $10 a gallon in the state of California. When those refineries
$10 a gallon.
When those refineries shut down and leave the state of California, they're doing it to themselves because of their craziness out there about what they do and what they pass. So the people financially, if they think a lot of people have already left the state, with that kind of insanity, there's going to be more people leave the state. But what happens is, when these things occur, the people that leave the state have the wherewithal to leave. Either they've got another job opportunity somewhere else, or they have the financial resources to leave. So what's left are the people that are dependent on the government. So the conditions in that environment, in that state or locale, just becomes more of a handout situation. And that nobody wins in that situation. Nobody.
And over the past 4 years, they have been very, the federal government has been very anxious to help California. Currently, they are not quite so anxious to help California. So California could, if it wasn't for Silicon Valley, they'd have nothing.
Oh yeah, because you take a look at it, that so-called railroad that they're building out there, rail line that's supposed to run to Merced, California from, I don't know if it was Oakland or wherever it was, but they've been building that now for 20 years, whatever, at a cost of billions and billions and billions of dollars, way over cost, and they haven't laid one rail track yet, not one rail track in all this time.
High-speed bullet train.
And so a lot of that money was coming from the federal government to the state of California, and Trump came along and said, time out, no more money for that rail line. It's just financial insanity. You spent billions and billions of dollars, you're not anywhere near having a thing operational, and you want more money from the federal government? No. You want to build that rail line, you build it with state funds. If that drives you into bankruptcy, that's too bad. You started this project, and obviously there's no oversight in what's happened all these years. So the taxpayers of California and the federal government taxpayers, in other words, we the people around the country, have helped fund that thing. And now it's a boondoggle, and it's time to get out.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the Cross-Florida Barge Canal was kind of the same way. But, it's here in Highlands County, the thing that you will hear is, well, the gas tax goes to build roads. So in some ways, it's perceived as a user fee. I use the roads, I pay the gas taxes, the tax that I pay goes to actually do the maintenance. They don't have enough to do any maintenance, very much maintenance, much less build new roads. But I don't know about how the state gas tax works, but the local gas tax is what they call dedicated funds. You can't take the gas tax and give the county commissioners a raise.
Right.
You can't take it and use it to build a new county commission building. You have to use it on the roads. And so I, at some level, accept that. I accept the gas taxes in Florida because that goes to pave the roads. But if you look around here, you can see that it's not generating that much income. And one of the reasons is, as the price of gas goes up, you use less of it. You are much more
frugal.
Thank you. Prudent in your trips. You try to.
Right.
In fact, today we have a trip all the way down to Sebring, and we're going to try to do a lot of things while we're down there. It's kind of like when you tie your shoe. You tie, what else can I do while I'm down here? So that being said, they don't get as many pennies on the dollar as they would if the gas prices were low and people were just driving around and just joyriding and stuff. They'd get more money.
Well, the other thing is, and it hasn't generated what they thought it would, but that is the advent of the EV vehicles. Of course, they thought every EV vehicle that's on a road has replaced a gas vehicle, so they're not paying anything for the road maintenance, the EV drivers, yet. All right, they're going to figure out a way. Like in California, they charge you now by the mile. Okay, you have.
We heard about the fabled black box.
You have to pay.
That takes your mileage.
You have to pay a tax based on the mileage that you drive each year. I guess you're going to have to report it on your state taxes or whatever. I drove 15,000 miles this year at such a rate. That's what my tax is going to be, and that's only fair because the EV vehicles, in most cases, weigh more than the gas vehicles.
Yes.
So they're doing more damage to the road than a regular gas vehicle with their 1,000-pound battery pack or whatever is on that vehicle. So you can expect that even though EV vehicles are still being added to, but not anywhere near what they thought it was going to be.
Even in the early days when the three of us were on the terrestrial radio, I remember reading articles about you know how they have the black box in the airplane that records all the instrument readings, that they were going to be getting to put black boxes on your car to figure out where you went, how long you went, how fast you drove, and some of that now is on your government tracking device. You and I call that a cell phone. So it tells kind of where you went and how you went. It's not really necessarily tied to your car particularly, but I think that they may already have ways to track that kind of thing if they feel like it.
Well, you know that when you go into an establishment today, many times when you're still there or just as you walk out the door, you'll get a ping on your phone, and it's something advertising for that business you just walk out the door of, okay? Because they know you were there, and they said, hey, come on back in because we've got this thing you need to buy before you leave.
I have Siri on my phone, and I a little transparency here. I did a great interview with Donna Doubleday from Career Source Heartland, and I had I had a terrible time getting it off my phone into my computer. So I've been struggling with the technology, and I was talking with this guy, and I said I shut Siri off my phone, but I have no reasonable expectation that she doesn't hear what Sandra and I are talking about, because I was talking the other day about guitars. I love guitars, and I'd love to get my old rig back, a Gibson SG and a Silvertone Dual 12 amp. Now all of a sudden on Marketplace, all these guitars are popping up. You know, would you like to buy a guitar? Well, liking to buy a guitar and actually buying a guitar are two different things.
Right.
You know, I'm looking for a lawnmower, you know, and all of a sudden, here comes all these lawnmower ads popping up. So I think I'm not sure what Androids have, you know, but maybe it's Alexa, I don't know. But on my iPhone, it's Siri, and I told him, I said, I shut Siri off, but I think she's still listening. He didn't say anything. So I think that, your phones do listen to you and track, even when you say, please don't track my my activity across the web, they continue to track you.
I see there's this, evidently, and I don't pay attention to this stuff, but I see some articles on it lately where there's this thing now that goes out and it takes pictures of couples that shouldn't be together. In other words,
oh really?
You're a married guy, but there's a picture of you and your girlfriend at a baseball game. And this program puts these up online. And now a lot of people are suing because they're saying, wait a minute, that's an invasion of my privacy. Well, you're out in public and, you know, somebody took a photo of you and posted it, and now your wife is highly upset.
Well, there's this rock and roll band called Coldplay.
Right.
And on Coldplay, they have, and it's like at the football or baseball, hockey games where they have the kiss cam.
Right.
They say, come and give us a kiss. And they're taking pictures, and there's this guy with his arms, and everybody else knows what I'm talking about, his arms around this girl. All of a sudden, they see themselves on this big cam, and they break apart. And yes, it's a guy who's doing some unauthorized canoodling, you know, and so it's an amazing, and so that's gone viral.
Yes.
So I remember one kiss cam where it came, give us a kiss, and the guy holds up a little sign and says, "It's my sister," you know, or so my mom. I forget. I'm not kissing her, you know. And one guy was on the phone, and the guy next to her kissed the girl anyway, you know, because they were up there. But yeah. I think there's a lot of facial recognition going on.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, we had a terrible story here 3 years ago of a lady that had dementia, and she disappeared. And the Highlands County Sheriff's Office went out asking people who had, you know, security cameras if they had her on camera. And they did find her finally. She'd gone through the Avon Park bombing range, out through the boat ramp, and gone into the Kissimmee River and was never seen again. And I talked to the public information officer. He says, "You're on camera so much, you have no idea how much you're on camera. You go into the Megalo discount mart over here, you're on camera all over the place."
Well, the one thing about self cameras and that people have on their phone or on their house, the good thing about that has allowed people to track people's movements.
Yes.
Good, bad, or indifferent. But if a crime is committed, and they want to know where this person went to, came from, whatever. If you go down and ask, okay, a lot of people have those cameras on their house now for security. And they can say, okay, there's Mary's 57 Buick going down the road past his house, and it was 3:03 in the afternoon. So we know she was there at 3:03. And they just keep going down the block or down the road, asking people if they can look at their cameras and see if Mary made the trip past their house.
I've had law enforcement. All of our cameras point out, except for one camera, which doesn't point in. It points in the cat room so we can watch the cats, okay? But we don't have any. A lot of people have them inside the house.
Yes.
Pointing.
Right.
We don't do that because I figured that those can be hacked, but we haven't pointed. And they've come by before and say, hey, look, do you have video between such and such time?
Right.
Because they were looking for a car coming down our road. And I said, well, I'll take a look. Anything I have, you can have. So, yes, and, of course, businesses have them all over.
Oh, yeah, right. And it's a good thing. Yes, people can use it for nefarious activity, but the bulk of it is that it provides you some degree of protection and advance notice if something happens. And, I think it's more positive than negative. And they really have turned out to be a pretty good thing. And the technology now, from what I see and hear, has come down dramatically. I mean, the quality and the cost of it, because
the cost,
more people have gone into that business, which created competition, but also it provides a better price for people that want that.
Yeah, well, I can call, we can call up on our phones, and we can be far away. I have a Ring doorbell where people have rang the doorbell, and I've talked to them. I tell them, I'm in the bathroom right now. I can't come out. Just leave it at the front there. Da 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 da. And they have no idea that I'm far away. And so, and like you say, that the technology is there. The cost has really and continues to drop.
Yes, because more and more people find ways of reducing the cost of manufacturing, putting it together, buying the components, and so they get on the market, and that competes with the other guy and the other guy. So there used to be in the beginning when that first started, Ring doorbell I think was about the only one in the business. But as time has gone on, more and more companies have jumped in. Guys have developed different technology, brings the cost down.
And the guy that invented Ring doorbell, he invented out of self-defense. He went looking for what he wanted to have. It was not available, so he made it. And then when his friends found out about it, it was like Garrett Anderson over here at the Oak Island, the Bullet Company. They said, well, can you make one for us? And he started, and all of a sudden, he was making for a lot of people. So, necessity being the mother of invention and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. And it works out for the betterment of the public, by and large. I mean, that usually happens, and it's almost always, it may not be, someone in their garage who's tinkering, and I think I can make a better mousetrap. And so they tinker and tinker and tinker, and guess what? If they're good and lucky, they've created a better mousetrap.
And that's one thing that I want us to do is to call madeinamerica.org. They were just on the radio, but with Trump's tariffs making it easier for American businesses to start up, and Trump's exhortation to states and local governments to make it easier on business, it's going to help. The tariffs are going to help make up for the $15 an hour wage that the businesses are now forced to pay. But I think you're going to find that there's going to be more American businesses and more American options for a lot of the stuff that we buy.
Yeah, I was listening to some of that trade talk this morning, and there were some pros and cons. They had some people on that said, no, it's going to just definitely create inflation. Other people are saying, no, it's going to create competition and lower pricing. So I think the market is still out because some of India has not come on board officially. China has not come on board officially yet. I know they're having talks I think more talks with China and whatnot and so on. So we'll see what happens when the tariffs kick in. But the tariffs are a two-way street. If you're continuing to, like Trump has said many, many times, if you're charging us 25%, we're going to charge you 25%. If you're charging me 15, I'll charge you 15. So all he wants is equitable treatment between the United States and these other countries. For years, they were happy as clams because they were raking us over the coals. I mean, they were charging us 25 and we were charging them nothing.
I saw an interview with Donald Trump on the Oprah Winfrey show back in 1987, and he said, Oprah, you trying to sell something in Japan? He says, you can't. Not only is it tariffs, but it's predatory trade practices, all kinds of things. And so this may be a little tough for a while, and we may have to pay a little bit more for some of the things we like or find alternatives to them. But I think I heard Victor Davis Hanson talking about this, because what's happening is a restructuring of trade in the world that we're not necessarily, you and I don't necessarily see at the grocery store or the dry goods store, but it's happening. And by the time he gets done with the end of his term, I think we're going to see a huge change in the way America does business in America and overseas.
Oh, I think so, definitely. And it'll be interesting because Canada, and I'm sorry, Canada, you've got a terrible leader up there. He's just, to me, a terrible person.
Yes.
And so on. So I don't know whether he's going to try and destroy Canada by not coming to the table and agreeing to something. Canada's been happy as a clam with the tariffs between the United States and themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've been raking us over the coals for years. And the other thing that happens, and it's kind of like, okay, doing away with regulations. A lot of these countries, if it wasn't tariffs, they slow-walked the import of whatever your product was. They would yeah, we have to put this through a testing procedure. It'll take us 6 months to get it accomplished. So just sit on the sidelines and wait until we tell you things are ready.
They have to be checked in, but we've only got one checker-inner there.
That's right. Yeah. So I think it's a combination of how they deal with you on the transfer of goods. In other words, do they put roadblocks in front of you, or is it just an out-and-out tariff increase?
And Donald Trump doesn't mind speaking very plainly about that kind of stuff.
Not at all.
We saw with Japan when he finally kind of threw his arms up and said, okay, we're not going to come to an agreement. We'll just go ahead with the 35%. He said, oh, whoa, wait. And I think it's like a kid. Sometimes they want to see, when am I going to get a spanking? How serious are you? And I think Donald Trump, he knows he's only got 3.5 years left, and with the upcoming midterms, it might not even be that long.
Right.
And what happened in Texas is it's really where the legislators, the Democrat legislators, fled town so they couldn't vote on the redistricting because they know they're going to lose seats.
Illinois. They went to Illinois.
They went to Illinois where they're kind of safe. So I think Donald Trump is going to try to do as much as he can. Although he did get the Senate to stay in session at least partially over the weekend.
Yeah, partially over the weekend.
7 out of 150, and including Jeannie Pirro, which will be really a good appointment.
Yeah, but there's, I think they said this morning there are still, 80 or 90 appointments, some of them just ambassadorships. In other words, I want to put an ambassador in Taiwan, and they won't approve my nominee for my ambassadorship.
The Democrats had called for roll call votes on each one of these to slow the process.
Right.
They're trying to slow them down. They're trying to be, as my best friend would say, big butts. They're trying to be butts about this.
Well, it's Chuck Schumer, and Chuck Schumer, he is so afraid of their wild, crazy base that they've got. I mean, so afraid of him, because he's walking on eggshells. His time is long since passed, like a bunch of them down in Washington. And AOC has got the heat on him, it appears, as she's going to be the competition for them in a Democratic runoff.
Or Gavin Newsom, one or the other.
Well, but I'm talking in the state of New York.
I see.
From the state of New York,
Yeah.
that she wants to replace Chuck Schumer. That's what everybody's saying, whatnot. And so he's bowing down to the radicals in his party because she's part of the radicals, try to placate them. And unfortunately, the country is suffering because he's not allowing these things to happen.
I think that there is a mood in the country to get rid of those people that are trying to do. The Democrat Party is at their lowest ebb that I can remember them, because the people who've taken over are really communists, and most Americans don't want that kind of thing. And so I think you're going to see some of these Democrats replaced by America First candidates, and regardless of how the district is drawn.
Well, you've got two out-and-out communist people running for mayors now, the one in New York, Mandami, and this guy in Minnesota. And they're both two of a kind. They're both radical communists, okay? They want to do everything for free. But I watched a pretty good expose this weekend by one of the podcasters. As a matter of fact, he put out 2 or 3 of them this weekend about the corruption in Minnesota. And
Oh.
I'll tell you what, if you take, and we're talking billions of dollars, billions, and almost all of it revolves around the import of all of the illegals, or not maybe illegals today, but all the people they brought in to the state of Minnesota from Somalia.
Yes.
And you're talking huge amounts of money. And the thing of it is, Tim Walz, I mean, he has absolutely no clue what goes on, none. Because he talked, I'm going to put, when they questioned him this weekend about all this corruption in the state of Minnesota, well, I'm going to put together a task force and we're going to examine what's going on and we'll get to the bottom of it and we'll fix it, which is all gobbledygook.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
that's the first dodge to slow government is we're going to get a committee. And the committee can look at it forever. And again, they slow walk while the committee's looking at this. All of it continues while the committee is looking into it.
Well, the good thing, though, a lot of this corruption revolves around federal money. And so now the feds step in. It's not just the state of Minnesota investigating. It's also the federal government now investigating it. And they did some interviews this weekend with, attorney generals or whatever from the federal government, investigators, and the fact that they're definitely looking into it. And there's no doubt that the corruption, they've already arrested some people that are deeply, deeply involved in these multi-billion-dollar corruption schemes and so on. But it is, I mean, you talk about corruption, and there's a lot of it around this country when it comes to governments, but Minnesota is, there's so many
Who
programs
would
out
have
there that
thought?
corrupt.
I mean, who would have thought? But we had from the first Obama election, we had video of somebody off camera. They refused to be on camera. But these are people that are used to having men with guns tell them what to do. And they came in with vote by mail votes. They handed them, said, this is how you're going to vote. And they gave them a little piece of paper, and they stood there while they filled it out to make sure they filled it out correctly. They picked them back up, and then they left. And there's a lot of that went on. To quote Bob Dunty, who was the county attorney when I first came, what you know to be a fact and what you can prove in a court of law are two different things.
Right. Well, it appears as though the numbers don't lie because it all involves around the expenditures of monies, and sooner or later there's a paper trail of where the money went to. Okay, there has to be a paper trail. So the paper trail now is deeply being investigated, and there's no doubt, like I said, they've already arrested some of the key figures, but there's many, many, many more to go.
And one thing we really have to look out for, and this has come up in the past couple of days at my house, is that we have to look out for these sites that look very real, but are actually satirical sites. There's one called the Kruger-Demings Times. There's one called America's Last Line of Defense. And they put out articles that have some truth to them, but are actually false. And I went to... they said that it's clearly marked. It's not clearly marked. I have 3 different artificial intelligence that I use. I use Grok, I use Perplexity, and I use ChatGPT. And I use all 3 of them, and I cross-reference on them. And I asked him, I said, is America's Last Line of Defense, is that a trustworthy site? And they said, no. It plainly says on it. Now, I've looked, and I couldn't find where it plainly says that it's a satirical site. Don't believe anything that's on here. I saw a video that claimed that Bernie Sanders had gotten $44 million from U.S. aid to quit running against Hillary Clinton so that she could get the nomination. And I went and I looked for any kind of corroboration. All I could find was one of the months, I think it was the month of March, he'd set records by taking in $44 million. Okay? It had nothing to do with USAID, but they took that number so that when you did an internet search, oh, well, here it is. I found the number. It's, so I know it's right. So you have to watch out for these sites, and when you see, and they put things out that you want so desperately to be true, or you know in your heart, that's got to be true, that Bernie Sanders took $44 million from USAID. And it's not true. It's not true. I read a story this morning about Tim Walz's name, that Hegsteth had ordered his rank to be stripped from him because of stolen valor. So I went and sure enough, America's Last Line of Defense, that's the origination of the story. and you go in and you find out that during the campaign he was criticized for exaggerating what he did in the military, and he was accused by others of stolen valor. And for the folks who don't know, stolen valor is where you pretend to have been in the military, pretend to have gotten awards or things you never did really get,
Right.
And so he was accused of that, but none of the thing about him being stripped of anything is true. So when we see these stories, when I was a news guy, in the early days, one of the rules was you had to have 3 sources that you could corroborate your story of it being true before you went with it. I most of the time I knew my stuff was true because I got it out of open meeting, so I saw it happen. Excuse me, I saw it happen. So when we see some of these, before we share them, I would admonish you to take a look on the internet, see if you can find a story that says, yes, that's true, and if you find it from a news source, then begin to look at this source and see if you can find out whether it's a true source, because they change the names on these all the time. They change once they get found out, and people say, "Oh, don't use that site." They just change the name and go again. So you have to be very, very careful with these satirical sites.
Well, because you go online and you start looking, I get so many emails. I get at least 100 emails a day.
Yes.
And there are so many of them that have the word conservative in it, which, conservative, you're conservative, so that piques your interest right away. Well, when you dig into it, it has nothing to do with conservatism, okay? So, I mean, you're right. You've got to corroborate it. The beauty of the thing, though, with what's going on in Minnesota, not to dwell on that, and that is they used all of the local TV and radio reports on the stories. So there was firsthand experience of the people right there on the ground doing the investigating, and then it snowballs into this bigger and bigger picture.
There you go, and that's a really good way to do it too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If somebody says something happened in Kansas City, well, you look up the Kansas City Star, Kansas City Radio. You see if they have that story or anything that's like that. So, but we're out of time for today, but there's always tomorrow.
Can't believe it.
Hang on, there's more to come. You've been listening to the latest edition of the Barry Foster Show, recorded at the Ridge Floor Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. Any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to address or guests you'd like us to have, just put them on the comments down there below. And check in every day. We try to have it, and we've got some bonus content coming too. Because, like I said, I missed a day because I'm struggling with the internet. Please subscribe to our YouTube page. It comes at no additional charge. Doesn't cost you a dime to subscribe. And join the pages of the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and on Instagram. As we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way, John Larsen and Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.